state may address the panel.
Your Honor, the state's going to waive the first clause and reserve for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Draskovich.
Thank you. You know, the jury instruction that I would like you to look at, and please pay close attention to, is jury instruction number 4. Jury instruction number 4 lays out the penalties that you are to consider at this stage in the case. You've heard a great deal of testimony in this case. You've seen a lot of exhibits. You've been attentive. We're basically rounding third base here, and you're headed home, and I'm going to ask you to, again, apply the same attentiveness, the same effort, and the same energy that you've expended up to this point. You know, when we pass judgment, it's an awesome responsibility because it takes two. It takes one to pass the judgment, and it takes one to receive it. The judgment that you make in this case will place an indelible life, or an indelible mark upon his life and yours as well. You've heard from the families, and in this case, we have 2 devastated families. Both families, through no actions of their own, have received the trauma of this case. The question now that's been put at your feet and that you must determine and you must pass judgment on as being the sole determinant of the facts is what's the appropriate sentence. You know, there's generally 4 purposes of sentencing. First would be that of restitution. Well, in this case, it's a murder case. There's not going to be a return of Jeff Gehrman's life, but then the question becomes, what does that mean? No sentence whatsoever that could be imposed is ever going to change that. The second purpose or consideration in the area of sentencing concerns deterrence. There's a fair amount of science on this subject, and you know, our criminal justice system does the very best it can, but heavy punishments in capital cases, capital punishments don't really have a deterrent effect. What we do have in our sentencing scheme in this state and most others are very harsh sentences. Every sentence that you are to consider will be the sentence imposed when you ultimately make your determination. It's not like a person gets sentenced and gets their sentence commuted. No, what you decide is the sentence that stays. You know, the third purpose or consideration in sentencing is rehabilitation. And we're making steps in this society and in this state concerning rehabilitation. Any sentence that you determine is appropriate involves a heavy prison sentence. We've heard from Robert's family. He's smart. He's capable of learning. He's got a work ethic. Any sentence that you impose, there's going to be a long period of incarceration, perhaps forever. And I'm going to ask you not to do that. But every sentence will have a period, a substantial period of time that would allow for rehabilitation. The fourth purpose or consideration is retribution. You know, I mean, most of us, this community kind of comes from this old Judeo-Christian, most societies, most cultures have this idea of retribution. And I would submit to you that as a society we've gotten past this idea of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You know, we end up being blind and toothless. You know, oftentimes, though, in society, and I will submit to you now in this stage of this case, there's this tug of war, really, between retribution and redemption. You know, in order for justice to be justice, there needs to be an element of mercy. You know, a person has to pay. There has to be this idea of punishment for a crime. But at the same time, there has to be this element of hope. You know, I'm not a religious person, but I know much of our society is religious in nature, and we have these ideas of atonement, forgiveness. I would submit to you that we don't forgive to let an offender off. Forgiveness involves preserving ourselves. As a society, we have to have this element of mercy when it comes to justice. There has to be this element of forgiveness. Question then becomes, will there be this opportunity of redemption? What's going to happen in his life now? You've heard pretty compelling evidence, testimony from his family. You've seen the pictures. He's a loving dad to his natural children and those that aren't. He's got a work ethic. He's intelligent. He can learn. You know, the sentence that you decide, this connection that will leave this indelible mark on his life, how's it going to affect his family, his children? You've heard the evidence. We respect your verdict. What happens now? Give him the opportunity, give those children the opportunity at one time, decades from now, the opportunity to have their father back, their stepfather back. Maybe even his mom will be alive at the time when he's released. Let her have the opportunity to have her son back. It's a heavy burden. The judge has instructed you. Obviously, you're duty bound, as you have been in the initial phase of this case, to follow those instructions. Allow for there to be mercy in this determination. He's not going to speak to you through this course. Given the posture of this case, he's maintained his innocence, but don't punish him for that. You know, he's exercised his right to go to trial. This is what makes this country so great. You know, trial by jury, trial by our peers. Hold the state to their burden. That's occurred. You've passed your judgment. Please don't punish him for exercising his constitutional right, which is one of, again, these ideas that we adopted from this old English common law and that our founder fathers embedded in our Constitution. Please don't punish him for doing that, for holding the state to its burden. And they've done an exemplary job presenting their case. You've done an exemplary job reviewing the evidence. But now the question as to the appropriate penalty. What is it? It's not life without. The man has no criminal history. He's 48 years old. He's led an otherwise exemplary life. Put himself through school, worked climbing ladders, doing HVAC, raised kids. He's involved with his daughter's diabetes. He researches it. And even now, as he sits in custody, he's been a hands-on father. You know, oftentimes we deal in the criminal justice system with these recidivists. You know, people that commit crimes over and over again and they just don't learn. You know, that's an appropriate sentence, life without. That's what you give a man that doesn't learn from his mistakes. That's what you give a man that continues to break the law, puts other people in danger. Given your decision, you have found that he's committed a crime, and now the question is, what's the appropriate punishment? I mean, I know firsthand, you apply to the bar, you have to give up every traffic ticket. If you're tardy and get expelled, they know about it. He was a licensed attorney. I'm not in any way saying that makes him a better person, but it shows that he had the wherewithal to put himself through school, to learn, and he had the background that allowed him to become a lawyer. That's gone. Give him a chance when he's an old man to maybe be around his grandkids or for them to be around him. He has a lot to give. Regardless of what's been proven in this case, regardless of what's happened, he has more to give. Locking him up, throwing away the key doesn't do him any good. It doesn't do his family any good. It doesn't do our society any good. Show him mercy, please. I'd submit to you that as a society, it's the appropriate thing to do.